Okay, so I'm gonna start to record.
Cool.
Founder of Elephant Journal, meditation teacher, and all-around fun yogi. I don't
Fun
know.
guy.
Fun guy. Okay.
I like to party.
Exactly.
Cool.
Okay, here we go.
Cool. Awesome.
Okay.
Thanks for doing this.
Oh, thank you for being a part of it. It's really fun. It's really fun to realize your vision and then put it into action, and then all the moving parts come together.
I have a lot of vision.
You have a lot of vision?
Vision.
Oh. I like that. Wishing visions, right?
Just trying to make you laugh.
Oh.
I don't know. I'm just thinking of Princess Bride. Vision. I don't know. I have no idea what's going on in my head.
Okay, well, I like it.
Okay.
Here we go. So, Namaste, Waylon. I didn't see your last name. Let's start again. Okay. Namaste, Waylon Lewis. I am very excited to have you here in the conference. You are founder of Elephant Journal and also meditation teacher and all-around fun yogi.
I love that intro. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, from what I know of you, it seems befitting.
Cool. Well, yeah. Thank you for having me. It's an honor and pleasure. You're a lot more fun than most people I meet on Skype.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
So your class today is a really exciting topic. I love it, which is the hardest yoga pose. What is the hardest yoga pose?
Well, partially it's the hardest yoga pose because very few yoga teachers teach it anymore. And partially it's the hardest one because it's the simplest, both physically and mentally, because it's giving you some structure to work with our silly, crazy minds. So the hardest yoga pose, at least speaking personally, others may be better at it than I am, but is meditation. Because you're not only working with your body and your breath, which are often have enough challenges right there, but you're working very simply with your being, your complete being, which, as we know, is on a micro level can be obsessed with some horrible song it heard 4 days ago for no good reason, or it can be like the universe, and it can be infinite and wondrous and mysterious. So day to day, the notion in Buddhism is if you can ride the waves of your mind. Patanjali talked about this in a similar way in the Yoga Sutras. Then you can lead a generally cheerful and helpful life.
Mm-hmm. I like that. It's true, because isn't that our true nature? Our true nature is blissful. It is fun. It is playful. But then all of the things that come into our life, our worries, our doubts, our obsessions, our looping in our mind, take us away from that state.
Well said. Yeah, I should start interviewing you. It's my habit. Yeah. No, we even find that in our yoga friends or our spiritual friends. We make everything solid and serious. We tend to self-identify with anything of value to us. If we're a foodie, we get uptight about that food isn't local. Get it away. Or if we're Buddhists, we're better than yoga people. They're so love and lighty and so yuppie and so, they're so irritating with all their weird buzzwords like, triggered and accountability and whatever. And if we're a yoga person, we look at Buddhist people and we say, they're not so enlightened. They're neurotic. They're yelling at their whatever, So the wonderful thing about meditation is you don't have to really identify with any team. Mm-hmm. You don't have to be Buddhist. You don't have to be spiritual. You can just want to live a good life where you have a sense of humor about yourself and a sense of empathy for others and yourself, importantly.
Mm-hmm. So much so, this is a place that we can go to recharge, to let go of everything. I feel like if I have a great meditation, it's almost like when you have that best night's sleep, when you're on vacation somewhere tropical and you wake up and you feel so relaxed. That's
right.
How I feel sometimes from the meditation. It's completely recharging. Do you have that experience?
No. Yeah. No, I think that, yes. For sure. So I meditate. The two best times to meditate, it's said, are first thing in the morning. When you first wake up, you have a little moment of clarity, perhaps, and then all your to-do lists and your iPhone and whatever is your kids, whatever your life situation is, go nuts. So if you can kind of stay with that moment of clarity and just realize that you're a human being on this earth living a relatively short and precious life, and just kind of a, smell the roses kind of moment. And then before you go to bed, anyone who has insomnia, you should be meditating, because it's proven by 9 out of 10 dentists to be more effective than counting sheep. Because you basically, many of us work all night. We're stressed out about work or a relationship, but no one's paying us to do all that work. You just take a break and recharge, as you said. But I think it's equally important to meditate, to value meditation when it goes badly. Like, often I'll meditate and, just endless thoughts about dumb, stuff. I don't even know why I'm thinking about it. Mm-hmm. It's not important to me. Why am I obsessed with this, whatever it is? Mm-hmm. And so, just like with yoga practice, often our practice isn't pleasurable or fruitional. Sometimes it's hard and it's challenging, and we run into our resistance, or, I don't have that experience. I have blissful, pure perception of reality, generally. I like that you're laughing at that. You're like, I'm pretty sure that's not true. I can tell. Yeah.
Well, I think that what you just said is called being human. We're going to have these peak moments of meditation, right, that high, and then you have these other moments where we're struggling. It's like, geez, how come I just had this peak moment the other day, and I was in the zone, and I felt so good, and then today I'm struggling with it. And I think that's why we continue on that path, because we've had a little taste of that, and we want to continue to get back to that place.
Yeah, I would also, though, say from a Buddhist point of view, it's called journey without a goal. So the goal is not to have that peak experience all the time. The goal in from a Buddhist point of view, your point of view is equally valid and probably wiser. But from a Buddhist point of view, the meditation it's sort of like Richard Freeman in yoga. He says, and he means it, I'm pretty sure. He says in his level 1 classes, he always says, if you're really stiff, you're actually better at yoga, because yoga isn't about being able to, sometimes he says, pardon my French, stick your head up your own yin-yang, It's not about being flexible. Yoga is simply about finding that edge and being able to breathe through it. And meditation's the same way. It's good or bad, happy or sad. It's about developing your awareness, basically, and that kind of flash of insight to be able to come back to the present moment, or your breath, or whatever the object of your meditation practice is, from distraction. So whether you have tons of distraction or no distraction isn't that important. The trick is to be able to come back. Mm-hmm. There's actually a famous story of an Indian Buddhist who traveled to Tibet, and he had heard to teach Dharma, to teach Buddhism meditation, and he had heard the Tibetans were peaceful, loving human beings. And he was afraid of that, because he said, well, I'm not going to have anything to meditate about because everything's going to be so pleasant. Mm-hmm. So he brought this tea-boy of his who was irritating to everybody around him. This guy, basically he brought like the most irritating barista in your life. He brought that guy. And, the hipster barista was like, ugh, how can you get milk and this coffee is single origin? And so he brought that guy, and later he reported that Tibetans were just as neurotic as anyone else, and he didn't need to brought the tea-boy.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So the point of that little silly story is distraction can be helpful.
Yes, it can. So what would you tell people that are listening and they say, I really have trouble meditating? Are there any tools that you use that you find helpful?
Yeah, the main response to that is to sit down and kind of shut up and just do it. Not shut up in a bad way. Like my uncle, for many years, he was a genius. He knew 9 languages. He could play, he could quote from Shakespeare or the Bible or play Prince or do whatever he wanted. But he was like, meditation is too hard. I can't do it. And it's like, on some level, there's no good advice there. Like at some level, you just have to, whether it's a moment of heartbreak with a girl or a boy, or some challenge in your life comes up, maybe use that moment of humbleness. We all are humbled by the hard times in our life, to just let go a little bit, as you said, and sit down and practice. It's not that hard. It's not that hard. It's impossible to do well, but it's not that hard to do a bad job of it. And that's all meditation is. I think people have an expectation that you have to sit down and be like that stone Buddha in your backyard, and rain or snow or sun, you're there. It's not like some macho enlightenment thing.
Exactly.
So anyone who's listened to Alan Watts, you get a real feeling that people, Pema Chodron, there's a real humanity and heart and sense of humor. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you can just sit. Trungpa Rinpoche, who was my parents' Buddhist teacher, his answer to almost every meditation question would be, just sit. Just sit. And it's kind of good advice, honestly.
I like that advice. It's interesting because I've read in many places where we obsess about the same 10 thoughts every day, and it can go on for years and years. So our mind is on this, like a mouse on this wheel, continuously going and going and going. So giving ourselves a reprieve through meditation. But I also hear from people, when I talk about meditation, they say, oh, I can't sit with myself for that long. It's too hard.
Well, that I'm completely sympathetic. I mean, imagine being me. What I would say to them is, at least you're you. Imagine waking up and having to deal with Waylon Lewis. I mean, but I managed to meditate, and partially because I am so hard to be. So if they are ever feel like being themselves is kind of high maintenance, then just sit down and with a sense of gentleness and caring for oneself, just, we can do a meditation instruction separately that I think you're also offering, but so we can get into that later. But basically it's as simple as touching in with your breath, like the waves going in and out, not with a sense of hard focus, but with a light touch. And that's kind of it, I mean, the Buddha himself practiced all these really intense yogas for 6 years, and at some point, he just let go, as you referred to before. He just gave up. He was like, I have perfected all these difficult yogas, and I'm still miserable. I'm still suffering. He wasn't miserable. It was like he still felt like he wasn't fundamentally harmonious with the universe or with life or his own nature. And he just gave up, and that's when enlightenment happened, fundamentally. Anyway.
I like that. It's true. It kind of, Osho, I really love Osho, and he talks about that we are already meditation. We are already a state of meditation. So just letting go and tapping into that which we are.
Yeah, it's kind of, I like what Osho said there. It's kind of like saying, I can't eat this beautiful plate of food. Well, whether you're not present and you're just thinking about, we've all had the experience of you eat something and you didn't even enjoy it because you're not present. So you're eating it either way, and all meditation is just inviting ourselves to be present with what's happening.
That's a great analogy. I like that one. That's so true. Everyone can relate to that. And you talk about you were trained in Buddhism and Buddhist meditation. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, I normally never talk about it, but I grew up, it's a sort of inside joke. I get made fun of for talking about growing up Buddhist. But yeah, I grew up in the Shambhala Buddhist community in Boulder, Colorado, and also in Vermont. I lived at a Buddhist retreat center during high school, which was very odd. So by day, I was like going to this Dead Poets Society style school where I went to on scholarship, and by night I was like, there were these monks running around, and also all these generally weird American Buddhists. But I grew up enjoying Buddhist people, but I didn't really get it. I went to Buddhist summer camps and a Buddhist private school, and my mom was a passionate meditation practitioner. She's a teacher. She's a real teacher. I'm like a casual teacher. But then I finally went to college, and I actually had such a rough experience my first year or two. I had always been pretty social and, some good friends, and but I had such a lonely experience. I was in this huge dorm, and it was just claustrophobic, and I was super excited, like many of us were perhaps, about college, and I had this roommate who didn't do his laundry for 6 straight months, which you can imagine, they're very small dorm rooms. Anyway, the whole experience was so claustrophobic, and for the first time, I actually really missed this Buddhist place I lived, Karmacholing, and I went back there and did a couple meditation retreats, and it was like one of those moments of humbleness I was talking about earlier. Like life kind of humbled me to the point where I was like, okay, maybe I should check out this 2,500-year-old stuff that apparently has worked for thousands and thousands of, lonely, neurotic, sweet human beings. So let's try it. Let's try this stuff. And I remember one meditation retreat I did. I walked outside and the flowers were like dazzlingly red or yellow, or the pond was glistening to the point I could barely see, and the grass, Vermont grass, was bright green, and the sky. And meditation literally makes everything more vivid and helps us fall in love with everybody, really, and be present for that food, or be present for that conversation, or what have you. Enjoy life more. And I think that's a wonderful thing that people overlook with meditation. They think it's some sort of serious, boring, spiritual thing. I certainly did, even though I grew up in it and I practiced. I did so much meditation practice as a child without really appreciating it, which is kind of a good thing. You can't be indoctrinated into meditation. You have to want to do it. And at some point, if anyone out there wants to try meditation or already is, and you practice consistently, which is key. You mentioned people have a really hard time meditating. It's really hard. Well, often we try to meditate. It's sort of like if we just tried yoga once and then said, I'm super stiff, I'm never going to practice again. It gets easier with repetition. So.
Exactly, and thank you for saying that.